It's on. Good morning. Welcome, all you chatty people. Welcome to First Parish Brewster. This church, as I love to remind myself, was founded in 1700. It's part of a living tradition, one that draws wisdom from all the world's religious traditions, balanced with the insights of modern science. We call ourselves seekers after truth and practical goodness because the one thing we can be sure of is that none of us have all of the answers. And if you've done the homework, that is, you've peeked at today's order of service, you'll know that indeed, we do believe in the power of questions. Questions that we ask ourselves, curiosity that we hold out for one another, and inquiries about how to make this world a better place, one word and deed, and even one question at a time. We'll get there. I'm the Reverend Scott Hull, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm joined today by my friend, Roy Scudder Davis. And together, we will be delighted to present today's service. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge and say thank you to Kaeza and David and Jen for sharing their musical gifts this morning. I want to say thank you to the many volunteers that keep this church running on love and joy, including our greeters, our ushers, our tech team, our coffee hour crew, our flower folks, and our many, many office volunteers. Thank you, one and all. Now, if you would do me a favor and join with me and give a very enthusiastic welcome to our friends online. Wherever they are joining us from, we are glad that they have chosen to join with us today. If you here are new today, either online or in person, let me congratulate you on your exceptional good fortune. Studies have shown conclusively that Unitarian Universalist churches are the very best places to live, learn, and grow. Know that you are welcome and that your presence here among us is a gift we are very grateful to receive. If you are so inclined, you are invited to take a moment to fill out the information card in that pew pocket in front of you. This is so that we can stay in touch and maybe even get to know you just a little bit better. Now, some announcements for the good of the order. First up is volunteers. We're always looking for volunteers. If you are good with people, want to meet people, or just want to spot hidden treasures, our thrift store is calling your name. It's a volunteer opportunity. It's really cool, and you'll meet great people. That's one. Here's another. If you happen to be techno-savvy or techno-curious, our Sunday tech team is looking for a few good hands. Now, if you're interested in either of those opportunities, the thrift store or the tech team, you're invited to send a note to administrator@firstparishbrewster.org, and we will get you connected into that, whatever that next step might be. Okay. Now, about you folks who happen to be new, either this morning or in the recent mornings, and you happen to want to know a little bit more about this merry band of misfits and what it means to be a member here, next Sunday, right after service, we will be having a welcome, a 101 class, if you will. And you are invited to join us. It'll be in the library, which is right across there, right next to the bathrooms, and we will hopefully see you next Sunday. Now, this is very important, so pay attention. Immediately following today's service, you all are invited across the street. And by that, I mean that way, at Winslow House. You are invited for a gathering, for a celebration, for a community of love. Our very own Kaeza and her beloved Ricky are celebrating their 1-year anniversary. Let's say congratulations.
I'm just going to go rogue for 1 minute. I just want to explain, we met through a connection through this church and through the music at this church. So that is why I really wanted to share. And yes, it's not just, you don't have to celebrate everybody's anniversary every
All right, so I do have a note about this. We have to, if you want to drop food or people off in the Winslow parking lot, that's the parking lot, that's the upper one. You're invited to do that, but you will need to park somewhere else. I'm going to recommend that way, next to the solar field, or if you are needing it, you can park right up next to the barn. You'll find it. In the barn, there is an elevator that will help people with disability needs move from the lower level to the party level. So feel free to take advantage of that. Now, with that said, and with so many wonderful, great things in our future, I'd like to invite you into this space and this moment by joining me for a deep breath. Let's take another one. In and nice, slow release. Continue to take a few more of these slow, intentional breaths over this moment, just this moment. And as you release, just try and release whatever it is that you need to let go of in order to make yourself fully present and connected to this time and this place and the possibility of the sacred.
Sometimes I wonder where I've been, who I am, do I fit in, make believing is hard alone, out here on my own. Guide me far and shine me home, out here on my own. When I'm down and feeling blue, I close my eyes so I can be with you. Oh, baby, be strong. Dry the tears I've never shown, out here on my own. But when I'm down and feeling blue, I close my eyes so I can be with you. Oh, baby, be strong. Sometimes I wonder where I've been, who I am, do I fit in? I can't be thrown out here on my own. Out here on my own.
What else do we need? You want to do that one? We're going to do that in a second. Hold on. All right. What do you think is next? Yeah, the candle. I think it is. I think she's right. Let's do this. You know what? I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to light this.
Our chalice lighting words this morning come from Anastasia Birch, who writes, "The spark of love resides in us all. We are free to act from it or not. We choose love. How will love shape what we do? If we choose love, how will it improve our actions? If we choose love, how will I treat those around me? If I choose love, will I find it when life gets hard? If I choose love, will you also choose love? Love begets love, and is love that lights our chalice."
Would you rise in body or spirit for our affirmation? What's next? Let's go ahead and divide. Oh, I don't know. Let's just make it easy. See me, from me to the clock on this side, you guys will jump up and down. You'll start with the regular text, and this side you'll respond with the italics text. Does that make sense? All right. So Roy, would you lead us off with the regular text?
We believe in love.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
We believe in truth.
The quest for truth is our sacrament.
We believe in helping others.
And service is our prayer.
We believe in the sacredness of life.
To the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. If you'll remain standing, we're going to sing together hymn number 298 in the gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses. 298 in the gray hymnal. honor the beauty and wisdom of God. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. There is. Oh, there it is. Granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole. Verse 5. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Transformed by Jesus, Christ alone I care. Perfect. Anna? Oh, perfect. Woo.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody, on this finally beautiful day. Do you guys want to come over? Come closer. Come closer. I want you to think about, oh, good. I want you to think about a very important person, like a super, super important person to you. And do you know who that is? You. Yep, you are the very, very important person. And we're going to think about that very important person as our future selves. Have you ever thought about your future self? What that looks like, who you'll be, what you'll be doing? So, as we're thinking about our future selves, we don't want our future selves to forget our present self, do we? We don't, right? So I want you to think about that moment, maybe Christmas morning, when you wake up before your parents and you're super eager. You're like, why are they not waking up? Or your birthday, you're so excited because it's your birthday, or there's a party you're super excited for. Close your eyes, and I want you to think about that feeling. Okay, can you think about what that feels like? Okay. And then how about this? This is coming up soon. Think about that feeling that you have that first day after school is over. And you wake up in the morning and you realize, I don't have to go anywhere. That's exciting. Right? So those feelings of excitement and what the possibilities are, we don't want to forget, right? Our future self, we don't want to forget that, do we? We want to remember that feeling. And I think sometimes future selves, we all, whether we're big, grown-ups, little, smaller people, and everywhere in between, right? We want to remember that feeling of excitement, right? And that looking forward to. So as you are going through your day today, and as you're going through your day next week, and even when you're at school and you're hanging out with your friends and that's super fun, remember those moments, right? And also know that every single one of us, everybody here, your people at school, your friends, your teachers, we're all here and part of your story that shapes you to who you're your future self will be. Okay? That. Thank you very much. And can I say, I'm excited. I'm always excited to find out those little guys that are in my life and what their adult life is. I'm always excited to see that.
Children, may you go now. Thank you. Children, may you go now. Love surrounds you. Let's take a moment and greet our neighbors. Use the microphone.
Somehow I prefer yelling than using a microphone, but okay. Today's offering is a split plate with a baby center, a program of the Cape Cod Council of Churches. The mission is to supplement critical basic needs for babies in need who live on Cape Cod and the islands. These services are provided at no cost to clients and without regard to religious preferences. You can learn more at www.ababycenter.org. This charity was nominated by the Building a Bigger Table Task Force. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Start with one kindness that might lift one's soul. Start with one kindness your heart can't withhold. It won't mean your praises, it won't make the news, but you might help a neighbor hear a song in their blues. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world. Start with one person riddled with fear. Start with one person who just needs your ear. It might not be someone you'd normally notice. They might not share your political focus. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world. Start with one neighbor with no house to call home. Start with one neighbor we can help build their own. Yes, there are millions whose needs we can't heal, but this family before us has a need that is real. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world. Start with one family, build a roof over their heads. Start with one family whose dreams can be fed. It might not relieve every burden they'll carry, but they have their own walls to shelter their sharing. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world. Sometimes it's random, not part of a plan. Who ends up in front of us, leading our hands. With all the gifts with which you and I are bestowed, aren't many of them just as much the luck of some draw? So start with one stranger placed in our path. Start with one stranger, maybe by chance. If our path doesn't lead us by someone in need, perhaps it's a different path we should seek. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world. Start with one person who looks different than us. Start with one person maybe down on their luck. Give them our healing, give them our time. We all might feel the universe subtly smile. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world. Start with one kindness, you might change someone's world.
Wow. Big day. This is good stuff. My meditation this morning will come as a call response from the Gray Hymnal. Gray Hymnal. We're going to do number 598. 598. That's towards the back. It's called Without Hate. 598. I'll read the regular text. You'll respond, if you're so moved, with the italics text. 598. May every creature abound in well-being and peace. Weak or strong, the love and the small, the short and the medium-sized, the mean and the great. May every living being, seen or unseen, those dwelling far off, those living nearby, those already born, those waiting to be born, may all attain inward peace. Let no one deceive another. Let no one despise another in any situation. Let no one, from antipathy or hatred, wish evil to anyone at all. Just as a mother with her own life protects her only child from hurt, so within yourself foster a limitless concern for every living creature. Display a heart of boundless love for all the world in all its height and depth and broad extent. Love unrestrained, without hate or enmity. Then, as you stand or walk, sit or lie, until overcome by drowsiness, devote your mind entirely to this. It is known as living the life divine. Thank you. I like that saying. There's a lot of teachings that wrap in this, but I want you to kind of keep this in your mind as we explore the rest of the morning. And in the moment of silence to follow, I'm going to invite you, in honor of the heaviness of the world we all inhabit, if it's comfortable for you to do so, if it's meaningful to you to do so, you're invited to speak aloud the names lying heavily on your heart to be embraced by this compassionate community. Let's sing. It'll be in the Teal hymnal, 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
And so we'll replace the word I with you the second time, and then we the third time.
I find myself in a rather unusual position, standing here in front of you dictating what today's sermon is going to be about. I became a UU in October of 2025. And before that, the last time I belonged to a church, I was a teenager. So it's been a little while. So I'd like to tell you how I came to be in the position being up here. First, I've been interested in connections for some time, individual to individual, group to group, idea to idea, science to religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've come to the conclusion that we are all connected in subtle and sometimes very profound ways. Second, I've listened to this congregation recite this statement, "We believe in love." And the response, "Love is the doctrine of this church." It is very room on multiple occasions. I truly believe in both of those statements, and I am certain that you do as well. Third, I am disturbed by the inability of people on supposedly opposite sides of issues to communicate with each other in meaningful ways. The connections are possible, but they are being ignored. In fact, I have heard of some very good and kind people who wish harm to come to people with opposing views. And I sort of point to our current president. Perhaps these wishes are not sincere, but the fact that they exist is troubling. Fourth, in the fall, there was an item up for auction during the UU fundraiser. The item was an opportunity to propose a sermon. As you might guess, I was the winner of that auction. Say, buying a sermon, $100, hearing its message, priceless. So how does this information go together? For the sermon today, I wanted Reverend Scott to address the question, how is love manifested toward people with whom we adamantly disagree? It is easy to love someone with whom we agree. It is easy to love a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King Jr. Their actions and philosophies embody love. But how do we manifest love toward a Hitler, a Stalin, or any of the political leaders operating today who institute policies that we believe do not express love? We are searchers after truth. We believe in love. Does love only go to the deserving, or does the truth lie somewhere else? That is the question that I am hoping to explore today and to pursue into the future.
Jesus said to love your enemies. Unfortunately, he was quite clear about it. Not long ago, I saw a cartoon that had Jesus on a hillside saying just this, when a hand in the audience immediately shoots up. "Excuse me, Jesus, I have a question." Jesus is clearly surprised. The questioner then asks, "What if they're really mean?" Another hand goes up. "What if they're really annoying?" A third hand, "What if they're wrong about everything?" A last hand, "Yeah, what if they're like Gary? Gary's the worst." You can imagine Jesus closing his eyes, maybe putting his hands in to his face, just pausing a moment and saying, "Yes, love your enemies, even Gary." And then you can see Gary in the background, fist in the air, shouting, "Ha ha, take that, losers!" That cartoon is funny. Not Stephen Colbert monologue funny, but funny. And it's funny because this is us. We all have exceptions. We all have people for whom the very clear commandment to love somehow feels less applicable. Loving humanity is easy. Humanity is wonderful. People are the problem. I think it's safe to say that regardless of your opinion about Jesus, the Beatitudes, or modern Christianity, most of us here are pro-compassion. We support forgiveness, grace, generosity, and all those virtues that sound wonderful when embroidered on pillows or printed on t-shirts. The trouble begins when there's a face attached to the problem. It's one thing to love humanity, but it's another thing to love Gary. Now, I don't know who Gary is in your life. This is that moment. You can do your substitution, right? Maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's a politician, maybe it's somebody on Facebook who appears to have made it their life's mission to lower the quality of public discourse. And maybe it's someone who has hurt you. And that's where the joke stops being funny. Because for most of us, there are people we genuinely struggle with. People who disappointed us, betrayed us, frightened us, lied to us, abandoned us, hurt us. When Jesus says, "Love your enemies," most of us have no trouble imagining who this refers to. The difficult part is everything that comes after that. How exactly am I supposed to love someone who makes it so very difficult? How do I love someone whose actions I oppose? Someone whose values I reject? Someone who seems determined to bring out the worst in me, in specific? These are real questions. And they feel especially real these days. We live in an age of outrage. Every day brings fresh opportunities to dislike someone. Entire industries profit from helping us to do it. Political movements depend on it. News organizations thrive on it. Social media algorithms are extraordinarily good at figuring out exactly which people, stories, and controversies will keep us angry enough to keep scrolling. Every day we get handed a new list of villains. Every day we are invited to sort the world into heroes and enemies. And if we're being honest, some people make that sorting very easy. And that's why I think many of us secretly wish Jesus had added a few footnotes. Love your enemies unless they're spreading dangerous lies. Love your enemies unless they are nasty and cruel. Love your enemies unless they drive through the rotary like they have diplomatic immunity. Surely there must be a line somewhere. But there aren't any footnotes in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus simply says, love your enemies, and that's it. And if we're being honest, it's impossible. The strange thing is that I think Jesus knew that. I don't think he accidentally overshot the mark. I think he meant it to be hard. In fact, I suspect Jesus intended many of his teachings to function less like instructions and more like horizons. A horizon gives you direction, but nobody ever reaches a horizon. It remains beyond us, calling us forward. And perhaps that's what Jesus is doing here, not describing who we are, describing who we want to become. The trouble, of course, is there's a great deal of distance between here and there. There is a great deal of distance between who I am and someone who loves effortlessly. There's a great deal of distance between who most of us are and someone who responds to hatred with compassion, injury with forgiveness, and cruelty with grace. Great distance. So perhaps the question is not whether we have arrived. Perhaps the question is how we travel. And that brings me to Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman spent much of his life thinking about hatred. As a black theologian living through segregation in the 20th century, he had every reason to hate. Yet he became deeply concerned about what hatred does to the person who carries it. He said that hatred has a certain appeal. It simplifies the world. It gives us certainty. It gives us clarity. And if we're honest, hatred feels good. It offers us something. But Thurman believed hatred eventually demands payment. And that payment is your soul. Little by little, hatred narrows our world. It reduces our curiosity. It shrinks our capacity for empathy. It becomes harder to see complexity, harder to recognize humanity. Most importantly, it allows our enemies to occupy far more space in our lives than they deserve. Some of us know exactly what this feels like. You haven't spoken to that person in years, yet somehow they are still living rent-free in your head. Anybody like this? A couple of you? You still replay the argument. You still rehearse the injury. You still carry the weight. Thurman asks a question of that, a question that I think is far more important than whether our enemies deserve love. He asks instead, what kind of person am I becoming? Choosing love is not easy. And Thurman does not suggest that wounds aren't real or that suffering can be overcome through positive thinking and manifesting. That would be awesome, but no. Instead, he offers a simple prayer. I want to be more loving in my heart. I find this enormously comforting. The gospel of choosing love, choosing to want to love is everything. But perhaps most importantly for us, it's a place to start. Many forms of Christianity begin with original sin. Many of the traditions you grew up with start with original sin. The idea, the conviction that humanity as a whole is fallen, corrupted, estranged from God. Our universalist ancestors looked at the same Bible and reached a very different conclusion. They saw a God whose love was stronger than judgment, a God whose mercy was stronger than condemnation, a God who refused to give up on people, a God who loves everyone I hate. Every one of them. The neighbor, the politician, the internet troll, the person who hurt me, the person whose name still makes my blood pressure rise. Even Gary. Notice what this does not mean. It doesn't mean that Gary is right. It doesn't mean that Gary is kind. It doesn't mean Gary is admirable. It does mean that Gary is not beyond the reach of love. And if God refused to give up on people, perhaps I should at least be careful about giving up on them too. Of course, this becomes much harder when I encounter actual human beings. But I have some role models. William Schultz is one of them. He was a former UUA president and executive director of Amnesty International. He spent years listening to stories of torture, violence, and suffering. If anyone has a good reason to become cynical about humanity, Reverend Schultz had that reason. Yet he emerged convinced that dignity was not naive. Dignity was not naive. Instead, it's a choice, a necessary choice. Like love, dignity is easy when people are kind. The real test comes when they're not. This is when principles stop being slogans and start being practices. That is when inherent worth and dignity stops being a theological statement and becomes not just a choice, but a discipline. A discipline. A discipline of refusing to dehumanize. A discipline of refusing contempt. A discipline of remembering that disagreement is not the same thing as worthlessness. And perhaps that is another way of understanding what Jesus was trying to teach. Not that our enemies are wonderful. Not that our enemies are right. Not that they are deserving of our approval. But that our enemies are and remain human. And if they remain human, then our obligations to them do not disappear simply because they are or have become difficult, mean-spirited, destructive, harmful, or hate-filled. Now, before we go any further, I should probably say something many of you already are thinking. Loving our enemies does not mean being a doormat. It does not mean, and it must not mean, remaining in abusive relationships. It must not mean surrendering boundaries. It must not mean tolerating violence. Jesus may give us the horizon, but we still have to live responsibly in the world between here and there. This is where Reinhold Niebuhr is helpful. Niebuhr was a contemporary of Howard Thurman, and he understood something religious idealists sometimes struggle to admit. Individuals may aspire to perfect love, But nations, governments, and institutions cannot operate on purity of heart. The Sermon on the Mount is a beautiful vision. It is not a foreign policy manual. Love is the goal, but justice is what love often looks like in the meantime. Justice protects the vulnerable. Justice restrains the powerful. Justice makes community possible among people who do not agree. And thank goodness for that. But Niebuhr leaves us with a problem. Justice helps me think about systems, laws, institutions, immigration policy, civil rights, poverty, war, and public life. Justice does not tell me what to do with the neighbor who drives me up a wall. Justice does not tell me what to do with the relative whose social media posts make me question my commitment to nonviolence. Justice does not tell me what to do with Gary. And that brings me back to where we started. How do I love people who make love difficult? I have a confession. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't know how to manufacture love. I don't know how to wake up one morning and decide to feel anything positive for people whose actions I find harmful, cruel, or hateful. I do not know how to flip that switch, and I am deeply suspicious of anyone who claims they do. But perhaps that's because I've made the task too large. Perhaps I have mistaken the horizon for the next step. Perhaps I've confused the destination for the journey. And maybe you have too. Many Buddhist traditions talk about enlightenment, a state where you are transcendent. Once upon a time, I imagined this as floating serenely above ordinary human frustrations. Peaceful, never angry, never impatient, never rolling my eyes, never muttering under my breath in traffic. In other words, someone completely unlike me. But I also know that in those traditions, almost no one talks about enlightenment as something that happens to people randomly. Instead, they teach that all religious aspiration is a practice, not a miraculous moment, a practice. They teach that compassion, for example, is not something you are born with. It's something you have to cultivate, like patience, like courage, like generosity. Like any other skill, practice develops through repetition. In loving kindness meditation, as we did earlier, that song, in loving kindness meditation, you don't begin with your enemies. That would be absurd. Instead, you're supposed to begin with someone you love, someone close to you, then someone neutral. Only later do you move towards people you would rather avoid altogether. Before you go there, start here. And there is wisdom in that. When you hear Jesus saying, love your enemies, maybe the lesson is not where we finish, but where we begin. And perhaps beginning is much smaller than we imagine. I don't know how to love my enemies, but I do know how to practice. I may be terrible at it, but I know how to pause before speaking. I resist it, but I know how to listen a little longer. Despite the brilliance of my comebacks, I am trying to choose curiosity over contempt. I don't like it, but I know how to read something one more time before I decide that I've got it. How to wait an hour before sending a text or an email. I can say good morning to someone I'd rather avoid and mean it just enough. I know these things sound ordinary. They are ordinary. And ordinary is where most of us actually live. Like many of you, I tend to imagine moral transformation as something dramatic, a conversion, a revelation, a breakthrough, a moment of enlightenment after which everything changes. But if I've learned anything, it's that life doesn't usually work that way. I've instead learned that life, most of life at least, is habit. The way we think about people becomes habit. The way we treat people becomes habit. And eventually all these habits become character. It becomes who we are. I groan a little inside when I say it out loud, but every small act matters. Every moment of restraint matters. Every moment of kindness matters. Every moment we choose not to humiliate, mock, dismiss, or dehumanize another person matters. Not because it changes them. Well, sometimes it might. That's a different sermon. No, today I want to say that we do this not because it changes others, but because it might change us. And I think that is where the great commandment, love your neighbors, love your enemies, love everyone always, that's where it finally becomes practical. Not easy, but something we can practice. When Jesus tells me to love my enemies, I honestly don't know how to do that, but I can be kind. I can refuse cruelty. I can refuse contempt. I can refuse to add more hatred to a world that already contains quite enough of it. I can try. I can try to treat another human being as a human being, even when I disagree with them, even when I dislike them, even when I know they are wrong. Even when they make it damn near impossible, I can try. And perhaps that is where love begins. Not as a feeling, not as agreement, not as approval, but as practice. Practice that becomes discipline. Discipline that becomes habit. Habit that becomes character. As 1,000 ordinary acts of kindness offered in a world that often encourages us to do the opposite. Now, I realize that this may sound underwhelming. After all this talk about enemies and hatred and justice and dignity, I am essentially saying here, standing and saying to you, have you tried not being a jerk? And yeah, I recognize this sounds suspiciously like the sort of advice one might find stitched onto a decorative pillow. Something that your Gary, whoever he is, may throw at you. But perhaps we dismiss kindness too quickly. Kindness is not weakness, passivity, or surrender. In a culture that increasingly rewards outrage, cruelty, humiliation, and contempt, kindness is a radical choice. A choice. Not because it solves every problem, not because it fixes every injustice, not because it magically transforms every enemy into a friend, but because it refuses to give the last word to anger and hatred and bitterness and despair. Because I deserve more than that. Because I get to be more than that. And so do they. Jesus said, love your enemies. And this is how. You do not let your enemies write your character. You do not let hatred shape your soul. You do not let contempt get the last word. You choose love because that is the horizon. You can't know how far off it is. And you can't know everything that the journey will ask of you. But you do know which way to go. This is how you love people you hate. You choose love. Every moment, every choice, every step, every time. Amen.
Let us rise in body or spirit and sing from the Teal hymnal 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
If you could remain standing for one moment.
We extinguish the chalice with these words from Eric Hepburn. We extinguish this flame to remind us love is the center. As we explore and rest, engage and heal, love is our center. When only ashes remain, love endures.
My friends, if you're comfortable doing so, please join hands. Know that whatever taste or touch you've had in this time and place of hope, peace, love, joy, that is a gift that goes with you out into the world. We are different for having spent this time together. And in the words of Henri Frédéric Amiel, please remember this. Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be swift to love. Make haste to be kind. Hold fast to hope. And wherever you go, be bold and go with great thanksgiving. Amen. Please join us across the street for coffee, conversation, and celebration.